What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Beyond the 90. We've got a very special guest with us today, Charlie Carmichael from Snack Media. First of all, Charlie, how are you doing, and how does the Community Shield feel, winning the Community Shield?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, mate. Obviously, yeah, still buzzing a bit from the Community Shield. I was at Wembley at the weekend, so yeah, lovely feeling and really nice to kind of full circle after winning the FA Cup as well.
Yeah, it's been an incredible. We were just talking just off camera about obviously supporting Leicester for that period of time. And just to put it into perspective, the analogy I always use is if you're an England fan and say you're 15, you've only seen England in the semi-final of a World Cup and the final of the Euros, and you've not seen the terrible years. And I feel that that's kind of the similar thing with Leicester at the moment, where there's so much backstory of it and so much hurt and pain that during this era, a lot of it is just enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it so much sweeter though, doesn't it? Like having that sort of agony to the ecstasy. It's strange because when I was at university, I had a couple of mates with Manchester United fans, and they've almost lived that in reverse. They've just grown up just knowing his glory years, and then obviously like post Ferguson, it's just like, hang on, it's like we don't win a trophy every season. What's going on? So yeah, it's obviously nice to be in this period now.
Yeah, it really is. And again, we'll probably come on to the ownership and stuff in a second. But I just want to go back to obviously the beginning of you supporting Leicester City. So growing up, who was your favourite kind of players to watch, and what got you into watching Leicester City in the first place?
So in terms of watching, I mean, when I was really little, I didn't even like football, which is kind of mad to think now, obviously, because it's kind of an obsession of mine. But yeah, I must have been about 6 or 7 years old. I was driving my mum insane, just like school summer holidays, running around the house, me and my brother causing havoc. So she just thought, right, I'm going to send you to the Leicester City community course, because we had like academy coaches come in and coach just like kids in the local community for the summer months. So I went to that, and that was really my first introduction without actually like going to a game. It was more just like getting to meet the academy coaches and actually playing football and falling in love with it that way. So then I started going to games maybe on sort of a semi-regular basis, basically whenever my dad decided to take me. And yeah, kind of evolved from there, and obviously managed to get a season ticket. Been a season ticket holder since about 2004, 2005, something like that. And yeah, I think I missed the Martin O'Neill era a little bit, which is obviously gutting. Obviously, it's not too gutting now that we have the success in place. If we were still kind of very mediocre, that would have been soul destroying to have missed that period. But yeah, kind of caught the back end of that. So you like, you know, your Matt Elliott's and your Muzzy Izzets and stuff were kind of like my first introduction to Leicester. Then kind of became more sort of like, I guess I grew up kind of watching your Patrick Isnorbos, Gareth McCauley's, Ian Hume. That was kind of my side. Yeah, Matty Fryer, obviously an absolute legend, especially when we go down to the third division as well. So they were kind of my favourite players probably growing up, and obviously now you've got the modern day greats. Not that specifically that Patrick Isnorbos is probably a great, but you've got your greats like your Wes Morgans, your Jamie Vardy's and that today.
Yeah, it's so strange to see that, because I kind of classify myself again, probably about 2004, but I was about 2008 I started getting into it. So I'm essentially generation Andy King. And that's kind of think of it. And again, there's been some ups and some downs, and just obviously how you come support of that, it's just amazing to see the growth of it. And obviously a lot of that is to do with the ownership. And I feel like we just talk on this show all about the ownership and how good it is, but it does feel like at times they don't put a foot wrong, and there isn't really a lot to criticize them about.
Yeah. I mean, I can't come on the show and actually level any criticism at them. I've got nothing bad to say about them. I mean, yeah, I think for me, they're arguably the best owners in world football. They're certainly the best owners in England in my book. You know, all the work that they do around the club, and not just the club, the local community, you know, the Foxes Foundation, now the Vichai Foundation, what they do for the local hospitals, you know, the money that they've pumped into like the Montfort University and things, and, you know, and then all those little things that you get on match days as well. You know, the pies or the Santa hat at Christmas or whatever it may be for free. And, you know, they're all just the little things before you start getting into the investment in the squad, the stadium expansion that's coming up, the £100 million training facility, their, you know, investment and commitment to the women's team now. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, the women, again, you're probably going to come on for the women's show as well, so we'll leave that literally for a separate interview, because I know James and Hannah are excited to get you on and talk about that, because again, I could talk about that for another bit, because that's a whole entity within itself that's blown up recently. But obviously, just with the history of growing up watching Leicester City, obviously you mentioned players like Ian Hume, Matty Fryer were two of my favourite as well. But who have been your idols growing up? Obviously now it's slightly different, but growing up watching Leicester City was obviously, as we were mentioning, very, very different. But who was some of the players you're like, okay, this is my favorite player to watch?
I think as a kid, obviously beyond Leicester, my favourite kind of players were like your Ronaldinho's and Thierry Henry's. So for me, it was Max Gradel. Max Gradel was like Leicester's version of this. He had like a bit of skill about him. He scored some great free kicks and stuff. So for me, he was the only player that kind of had any kind of reminiscence to what you'd watch on television and that. I think Matty Fryer is probably the obvious one. I mean, he obviously netted 30 plus goals in League One. Obviously brought us up to the Championship, who unfortunately had that injury where he got the broken jaw. I still kind of wonder, have that what if moment, like if he hadn't got injured, would the playoffs have gone differently? Would we have even got automatic promotion? Would that have been too soon for us? That completely alters everything, doesn't it? It's kind of like the butterfly effect, really, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, Ian Hume was kind of a tireless worker. I was gutted to see him go when we got relegated, but yeah, Matty Fryer and Steve Howard forming this lethal partnership up front, I'd have to say is probably the thing that I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was just talking about Carmichael. Very, very strange watching. But again, just thinking that is the same team that we're watching now, even in terms of the kit. I mean, I've got some of the kits, I think, back there, and I think I've wore them on stream when they're kind of like Jacko and Berda and the 125 anniversary. And to think that the kits we have now is just mental. To think that it almost feels like, I know it's two eras, but it feels like two different clubs almost that we've been supporting, because it just doesn't feel like the same at times.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, having the bright yellow tops tiles on the front cover and stuff like that, it just feels like worlds away from that now. Obviously, when you look at the Adidas kits and obviously the new sponsorship that we've got now, which has supposedly injected quite a lot of money into the club away from the King Power Group. So yeah, it does almost feel like, I think you're right. You're kind of like watching two different teams at times, but it's obviously so satisfying to know that you've seen that progression from your team that so few fans can say from other clubs.
Yeah. Exactly, and it's just mental. Again, probably Man City would be the only exception, but obviously they're on another level now. Just want to ask as well, what is the best game you've been to, or the best experience you've had going to a game, either home or away?
Oh, that's a really tough question. When we were in the Championship, I went to watch us play Leeds away. I always went to the home game when we were in League One against Leeds, actually. I think the League One game was 1-0 Steve Howard from a corner, which was amazing because we were like the two behemoths of the division at the time. And then, we beat them 2-1. I think Steve Howard might have even got both at Ellen Road as well when we played in the Championship. Scored and won that game as well. So that was absolutely mental. I just learned to drive, so I was going around the grounds with friends. And my mate ended up about 5 rows down, just like absolute delirium when we scored the winner. Obviously got some fond memories from the title winning season. I think that early season 3-2 comeback against Aston Villa with the Nathan Dyer header was just like, that was insane to be at that ground and feel the energy. I think I'll struggle to find anything that tops going to the Champions League and watching us beat Sevilla. I think watching that live, having the energy, being obviously 2-1 down from the first leg, and then Wes Morgan striking, Mark Albright getting the seconds, and just the theatrics from Jamie Vardy and Sami Nasri and stuff. I mean, that game was just electric. I'd have to say that's probably my as a one-off game the best I've felt as a Leicester fan.
Yeah, that game was, again, insane to think. Again, just coming back to feel like the same club, and also Kasper Schmeichel saving 2 penalties in 2 the home and away fixture as well, which was amazing. And again, just to touch on him, I mean, his development since he joined Leicester has been insane. And I think even though he's coming to like 35, 36 this year, he's only, it feels like he's only getting better with time. I mean, some of the saves he pulled off last season was immense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mark of respect that you've got to show Kasper Schmeichel, that you've got people watching the Euros, watching Danny Ward, thinking this guy's a Premier League keeper. He's saving things left, right, and centre for Wales. He's arguably their best player. And there's just no question that he's obviously going to be second choice. He's not going to get a look in unless Kasper Schmeichel, gets a knock. Obviously, Ward is going to play the cup games and things like that. But yeah, phenomenal. I mean, in terms of his shot-stopping ability, incredible. His obviously long-range distribution, especially kind of title-winning season when we were a bit more counter-attacking, just to be able to find Vardy and Mahrez with these like raking sort of 60-yard passes on the break. My only, not criticism as such, my only thing with Kasper Schmeichel is I do worry about him one, commanding his penalty area, I think, from corners, and a set piece in general is obviously a massive issue for Leicester. And secondly, his kind of short passing game. Now that we're, under Claude Puel and now Brendan Rodgers, these kind of like little dinks, 20-yard passes that you get out to either one of the fullbacks, like they so often go wrong. And I've kind of got my head in my hands. But as a human being, as a captain, as a leader, as an ambassador for the club, and just as an all-round goalkeeper in terms of, like I said, his shot-stopping ability, just like absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, he's been, again, as you were saying, fantastic again. And I agree. I think that was an issue, I think, a couple of seasons ago. I think he has improved that. I think him and Ndidi, I think that one of the criticisms I have of both of them was their passing range. But I think over time they have increased that. But one thing I want to come back to a little bit was the Premier League winning season. So kind of, where were you when Leicester City won the league? Because everybody has their own little story. I remember hearing it about, everybody said was Michael. Where was you when you heard Michael Jackson was dead? It's kind of like this in where were you when Leicester City won the league?
Yeah, it's like Leicester folklore, isn't it? Annoyingly, I wasn't in Leicester. I was at university at the time, so I was in Southampton in my final year. I watched the Leicester United game, obviously the 1-1 draw the day before, and then Chelsea Tottenham. I was watching with a few friends at home in my student house. And obviously just kind of thought it was done at half time, 2-0 Tottenham in that. And then, I think it was Gary Cahill got the first one. And then when the Hazard goal goes in, just absolutely mental, just running up and down the street, just going absolutely wild. Like everyone's just kind of like, it's nice because like none of my mates there were Leicester fans, but they're all so invested in it, so invested in the story. Like, so it was incredible. And then I didn't really know how I was going to react at full time because I just got all this mass adrenaline out of me with the Hazard goal, and then the final whistle goes, I just broke down crying. I just like really? Almost like the emotions just overcame me, and just got really, really emotional. And then watching when it flipped to the scenes at Jamie Vardy's house and they're all celebrating set me off again. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I'd almost like you told yourself it wasn't going to happen, and then obviously when you got to sort of like March time, you're kind of thinking, God, this is actually reality here. It looks like we're going to do it. And then but it doesn't really set in until it's like, you see it on the screen, the yellow confirmation in the league table and Leicester City with a C next to the name champions. And just like, absolutely insane. Yeah,
that's an incredible story. I was saying I was doing the final year of university, but I was in Coventry of all places. So even more, I was just like, I can't even, but again, all my friends, and I don't know about you, but the majority of fan bases support the top 6 teams, or more likely the top 4 teams, especially. And I don't know when people ask, "Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? You're top of the league." I just kept saying, "We'll see." Every single game was like, "We'll see," until it got towards the end, and I was like, again, that one still doesn't feel real almost about the whole situation, but it's just it just had to be one of those injuries to one of those key players, Kante, Mahrez, or Vardy. And that season goes completely differently. If certain other teams don't drop games or in transition periods, it all just worked out perfectly. And I'm guessing, did you went to the parade afterwards, or did you manage to get back for the trophy parade?
I wasn't at the trophy parade, but I did get to go to the Everton game to see them lift the title, which is obviously incredible. Obviously, Andrea Bocelli's serenading the crowd and all of that, and just the goosebumps within the grounds, and just really like living in the moment and realizing you're witnessing a piece of sporting history. I don't think, obviously, saying about the best games I've ever been to, obviously I'm not really thinking good game where I think we beat Everton 4-1, but I'm not really thinking about the game. But in terms of just the atmosphere and that, like taking it in and having to pinch yourself, I mean, what an occasion.
Yeah, it was a massive occasion. Just moving on, obviously, from that trophy, obviously, to one of the next trophy that we ended up winning was the FA Cup. I know you're based in London. Did you manage to go to the game at all, or?
No, unfortunately not. Didn't get to go to the final. Had to watch it from my flat in London. But I think I woke up probably everyone in this apartment, in this accommodation, when Youri Tielemans hits that goal. I was just absolutely screaming at the top of my lungs. It was insane. I mean, I honestly thought, obviously, once Johnny Evans picked up the knock and had to go off, I was thinking, like, if it was hard before, now it's just got like, it's going to be very, very difficult from here, especially with, like Castagna playing centre back in a back 3 and things like that. But no, held our own. And obviously, Chelsea fans feel like they got the last laugh because they got the 4th place. But I mean, for me, the FA Cup is historic. It's something that we're going to treasure. It's as we called it, the final piece of the puzzle, the only real sort of major trophy in England we were yet to win. So yeah, incredible.
Yeah, that for me was special, just because again, probably growing up here and seeing, speaking to especially the older family fans and stuff, that I don't know about you, but FA Cup meant a lot for them. For me, it was more about European football. But after speaking to them and that season ago, no, this means, listening to things like Radio Leicester and hearing the stories about people that have been going to them for years. And we've had people on our channel from like Glenn, for example, who's been supporting them for years. And this was arguably this was a more attainable goal than the Premier League. So it was just a massive thing for especially the older generation.
Yeah, I mean, we have that hoodoo, don't we, of the team that's got to the final the most times without ever winning it. So to be able to break that duck and finally win it is absolutely incredible. And yeah, while I agree that, you get a lot of people our age or younger who will think, no, getting the top 4 Champions League, it's the television money, it's the investment in the squad. You're not really going to, look back on that with incredible memories if you get knocked out in the group stages or something, goes wrong. Like last season, obviously Europa League got knocked out to Slavia Prague. Winning the FA Cup is something that you're always going to remember. It's something that you're always going to cherish. And no one can ever take that away from Leicester, similar to the Premier League. It's always going to be in the cabinet. Yeah,
definitely. I definitely agree there. And it's something that, again, we've finally got it, as in now we've got the Community Shield as well. You were saying, well, you went to the game. What was obviously sitting with the fans and experiencing that? Because it must, I've not been to either of the Community Shields, but is it, because obviously it's a mixture of obviously the highs of the FA Cup, and this one is slightly different because it's a pre-season friendly. But what was the atmosphere like, and what was the experience like altogether?
Well, I mean, you could tell straight away that the Leicester fans were really up for it, certainly compared to the Manchester City fans. To them, it very much felt like a pre-season game. It's like, well, we're here every year. We'll be winning the league or the FA Cup, and we'll just rock up for the Community Shield as and when it happens, if not at least every other year. So for them, it didn't really feel like they were bothered. Like the only time you heard any kind of noise from Manchester City fans was when Jack Grealish got to warm up. For Leicester, it felt like a massive thing. Obviously, it's still, we're still quite a humble family club. So to obviously have these big occasions is massive for us. Yeah, it was a nice atmosphere. Obviously, the owners supplied all the flags and everything for us, and obviously came on the pitch at the end, which was amazing as well. Yeah. And yeah, it really felt like a great day out. It felt really special. It wasn't quite the levels that you'd expect probably from the FA Cup, as you can imagine. And I mean, even halfway through, obviously we're not halfway, about 60 minutes through, where we're bringing on, Daka, Dewsbury Hall, Iheanacho, you're kind of thinking, oh, Rodgers is probably seeing this as more of a pre-season game. Like, this doesn't feel like he's making 4 substitutions and 1 that doesn't scream as someone who's desperate to win this and sees this as a major trophy or anything like that. But obviously Iheanacho coming on and scoring the winner. And I've got a couple of Manchester City mates that I've been winding up saying, you spend £100 million on Jack Grealish only to get beaten by someone you let go from the academy. Absolutely priceless.
Yeah, for a quarter of the price. You love to see it, which is brilliant. Just on that, obviously with the squad rotation and stuff, obviously Brendan Rodgers has done. Obviously, you're saying we missed out on the top 4 twice, and it's something that's looked at, especially by bigger fans, as, oh yeah, you missed out on this, you dropped points and stuff. But I don't. It's a different perspective from Leicester, because we see it as, look, part of us is still like, look, we're in the Premier League, thank God, still, and part of it is just obviously we've made such a big move in such a small amount of time, but obviously the owners have seen this in the past, and he's a lot to do with that. But he's obviously, for somebody like Claude Puel, who had a vital role to play, but now Brendan Rodgers has took it on to the next level. I just want to give your thoughts on him and what he's done, because I think he's definitely trying to change the philosophy of the club massively. Yeah,
I mean, I think Brendan Rodgers is incredible. I think he's the best British manager, certainly, like without a doubt. One of the top managers. I'd say obviously you've probably got to put Pep and Klopp in another bracket, but beyond that, I certainly think there's no one that I'd rather have at the club who's currently managing a Premier League side. Just a really proactive manager. He seems like an excellent man manager as well. The way he was with the whole COVID gate, where we had Chowdhury, Perez and Maddison missed that West Ham game, kind of arm around the shoulder defending the players. Even how he is with transfer speculation around James Maddison at the minute. He's very level-headed. The players all seem to really respect him, really buy into what he wants. And, I think Claude Puel, in some regards, I understand the flack he got. I feel like he was a little bit of an unsung hero in certain regards, obviously trying to move on sort of players and change the way we play. And he got a lot of flack, and he had to do a lot of the dirty work that needed to be done. And he was kind of the man to bear the brunt of that. And the football was a bit turgid at times. It was kind of 4-3-3 with 3 defensive midfielders, and you're kind of thinking we're getting 90% possession in our own half and not really doing anything. But with Rodgers, it very much feels like, play a high line, play on the front foot, be aggressive. I mean, you can see that from obviously Fofana's now unfortunately got that horrible injury, but Fofana and Soyuncu, how they just press and how they go in to win balls so high up the field, and look to, turn over possession straight away and put us back on the front foot. And obviously having players like Harvey Barnes back as well, who can actually pick up the ball and drive at people, it's just a massive asset. Because I think you saw last season as well, obviously Iheanacho kind of papered over a few of the cracks with his goal scoring exploits, but not having that player who can kind of just pick up the ball and take on a man and just go sort of recycling possession. But yeah, overall, I mean, what an impact he's had. Yeah, incredible, really. It
really is. And yeah, the impact in what he had. And obviously, as you were mentioning, a few players right there. Just in terms of the current squad and the current crop of players that we have already, is there anybody that really stands out to you as like, oh, this is a favourite player? Because before it used to be, as you were saying, like certain players that used to do a lot of the work and a lot of the fan favourites. But now I feel like all over the squad, there's kind of fan favourites and people that you can kind of go, okay, they're all good players, rather than say, okay, this is my favourite player. So do you have any like players that mean something to you or that stand out for you?
My favourite player, especially if he signs a new contract, is Youri Tielemans. I just absolutely love him. How can you not love him? He's just like everything about him. He just oozes class. His first touch is phenomenal. He tracks back. He does the dirty work. He puts a foot in. He scored the goal that won us the FA Cup. He genuinely looks like he loves Leicester, loves playing for the club. Our player of the season last year. Everything about him is just sensational. Obviously, I know that Jamie Vardy is a huge fan favourite, and he's a massive one that I love as well, for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think Youri Tielemans for me just conducts himself. And what another thing I love about him is you never hear anything bad about him off the pitch. You never hear about him causing any scandals, doing anything. He seems like a very sort of down to earth family man. Just loves his football, wants to go out and play. Just really classy both on and off the field.
Yeah, he really is. And again, I'd say there's quite a few players. I'd say the same thing. Something like Ricardo is another example that kind of goes a little bit under the radar. But again, I think after his horrible ACL injury, he's finally back, and it looks like we're going to get from what you saw at the Community Shield, and it looks like we're from pre-season. He's had a good pre-season. It looks like we're going to get the old Ricardo back, which just I think brings a smile to every Leicester fan's face. Yeah,
I think. Obviously Harvey Barnes wasn't injured quite so long, but the impact that it looks like we could have from Harvey Barnes and Ricardo Pereira being fit is absolutely massive on either wing. Looking at how we played the Villarreal game and also sort of play patches of the Manchester City game, it feels as though obviously 4-2-3-1 seems to be Rodgers' kind of go-to preferred formation. But in both, that's kind of how we line up, but then in and out of possession, it changes quite a lot. So you see a lot of the time Ryan Bertrand will tuck in and form a back three with, Soyuncu, Marshall in the middle, and then Amate or Fofana out wide. And Ricardo's just given this license to go forwards. And subsequently, obviously, Perez gets a lot of flack from the fan base. But, when he plays centrally for me, he seems to do a very good job. It's just out wide he struggles. So allowing Ricardo to push on and almost fielding a back three allows then Perez to tuck inside and almost play in dual role with James Maddison in that number 10 position. And with Ricardo and Barnes providing the width, seems to have a real threat. But then obviously out of possession, it kind of changes. It's the back four. And then James Maddison almost goes up front and we press in this 4-4-2 formation. So it's really nice to see this like levels of tactical flexibility and intricacy that Rodgers has brought to the table. And the fact that we know that we can play this way, but we've also got that option to shift to a back three and partner Vardy with an Iheanacho or put Iheanacho and Daka up front. It just gives us that real sort of, like I say, tactical flexibility. And especially with the additional squad depth with the signings now, I feel like we'll cause a few teams problems. Yeah, no, that was you're going to come on to my next question in terms of like somebody that just on the back of that. You've got somebody like Samori that can come in, and I think there was one part, I think for 30 seconds where he's just literally pushing people off the ball, go, no, this is my ball, and then taking it forwards and backwards, I thought was fantastic. But again, just on the three new signings that we have as well, so far, potentially there could be another centre back and hopefully a right winger. Let's see Leicester City. So the three signings we've made so far, I mean, just go through each one of them. Daka, I mean, when I first saw us linked with him,
maybe it's a bit naive of me. I was like, we're not getting him. He's too good for Leicester City.
Mm.
That was my initial thought. I thought we'll end up with Edouard. And then when he finally was announced and looking at the statistics, I just thought, wow. But seeing him obviously in the preseason and stuff, what have you made of him so far? Because I mean, he's becoming a fan favorite. You've probably seen how he interacted with people on Twitter before he signed as well. He's massive, obviously brought a massive Zambian population of a fan base over here as well. But what are your thoughts on him so far, and how good do you think he can be?
Yeah, I mean, you're a big deal when you're scoring a goal against QPR in pre-season, and the president of Zambia is coming out to congratulate you on it. I mean, like, he is like God level worshipped over there. It is insane. I did worry a bit when we first signed him, not anything to do with Daka himself. It's just that we seemed so close to signing Edouard, and then that deal fell through and we signed Daka. They're very different profiles of striker. So I was kind of thinking, well, Edouard's more of kind of your sort of in the box, your kind of poacher. He can hold it up, he can drop deep a little bit, and he can kind of link play. Whereas Daka's very much going to be playing on the last man, Jamie Vardy-esque, getting in behind. So I was kind of thinking, well, why have we just sort of pivoted our target almost and gone with someone with a completely different profile? It made me feel a bit uneasy. But from what you see from him, yeah, I mean, he does seem like it. People say it's a lazy comparison, but I just think it's an accurate one. He just seems like the heir apparent to Jamie Vardy. He's very stylistically similar. He loves to get in behind. We saw that pace for the penalty that he won against QPR, and obviously latched onto Mark Albright's ball for the goal. Electric pace. His goal scoring record, obviously, at Salzburg speaks for itself. Near Haaland levels of goals per game you're looking at. Seems like he rarely takes more than 2 touches, just wants to get it out his feet, or 1 touch if he can and bury it. So very excited to see him play. I think he'll be eased in gently. Obviously, it's really nice age now where Vardy can kind of almost mentor him, and he can come off the bench for Jamie Vardy and maybe play a few cup and European games, or if Vardy needs a rest, he can come in. And I think from next season, you'll really hopefully see Daka explode. But I think Rodgers has already alluded to himself, this being a bit of a transitional season for him.
Yeah, and I think so. And it will just the same with the look at the likes of Sionchu, the look at the likes of, well, Fofana hit the ground running from day one, to be perfectly honest with you. So even Yuri Tillemans to a certain extent, last season, well, 2 seasons ago now, he wasn't the same player that we got on loan. And then this season, he just took it to another level. And so we have a part of that is down to the ownership, but part of it is down to the manager, as we were saying before. Is there any other player that you kind of, or player to look out for? Obviously, Harvey Barnes has kind of broken on scene and become literally, I think, all over the Premier League, one of the favourite wingers, especially in terms of an English winger as well. Is there anybody else in the squad that you'd say to look out for? Because our under-23s and our youth academy especially is looking quite juicy at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of youth, the player that everyone's really excited about is Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, right? He's had this season now on loan at Luton. He was one of the best players in the Championship last season, ranked really highly for things like progressive passes, forward movement and stuff like that. So I think everyone's really excited to see him. He seems to have performed really well in pre-season, got the goal against QPR, got the assist against Villarreal, and impressed when he came on against Manchester City. So he seems like a real live wire. Again, similar to Daka, I don't see him uprooting Ndidi or Tielemans for one of those places. He seems to kind of almost play this like kind of roaming number 8 role, whereas obviously Tielemans plays a bit deeper, Ndidi anchors, and James Maddison plays in that number 10 role. So he kind of finds himself in between things. But I certainly feel like he can cover both Maddison and Tielemans in this team, and I'm sure he'll get plenty of game time, obviously, with the Europa League and all the cup competitions we've got to play. So he's a really exciting prospect to look out for. Obviously, Luke Thomas, another season of development. Maybe can feel slightly hard done by Ryan Bertrand coming in, but obviously, he's still young. He's going to bide his time. Bertrand's already showing his experience in the few pre-season outings we've seen from him. So I'm sure Luke Thomas will get plenty of game time, especially if we go to a back 3. You'd imagine that Luke Thomas, that wing back position, will be his unless he decides to shift Castagna over to the left. But from what I've seen, Castagna always seems far better served playing on the right-hand side of things. So yeah, they're probably the 2. And obviously we've seen a couple of youth players in pre-season as well who have done a good job. Soa, is it, from he was on loan at OH Leuven. Looks an interesting player, and can't pronounce his name, the winger, Matt. Manwan-Hisse, that's it. Yeah, your pronunciation is much better than mine. He looks a real live wire as well, but again, doesn't really feel like he's kind of first team ready yet. He was very much an under 18s player last season. Feel like this season he's going to play a lot of under 23 games. So one to keep an eye on, but I think immediately Luke Thomas and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall are probably the 2 that you'd look out for.
Yeah, and it's amazing to think that these players again come from Leicester, grew up through the academy. Hamza Chowdhury being another one. Obviously, it's not quite hit the same levels. We don't know the future of him as well. But to see these players come through our academy, come from, especially with Kieran and Thomas in particular, and take to the next level is just amazing. And I think it paves. They've got the right people around them in terms of Kieran has Yuri Tillemans, and then obviously Bertrand is there and has Luke Thomas as well as kind of these players, and with a manager that's going to train them up, get them better, and deliver them on to the next level. So if we do lose them, we've got backup, and that's one of the reasons that kind of gets overlooked why Leicester missed out the top four. Is just literally after last season, I think against Crystal Palace game, we were playing like 4 or 6 central midfielders because of just filling whatever was in the squad, just chuck it in the squad and see what could go. But just in terms of that, it must be good to see from a Leicester fan perspective as well, in terms of seeing the young players come through our academy and then break into the first team, which again in the Premier League, especially at the level we're at, is quite hard to do.
Yeah, it's a massive point of pride. And I think obviously, if you've got to go, I think Rodgers has said this before as well, if you've got to go and spend 20, 30 million pounds on a player, or you can get someone and develop them from the academy, then it's a no-brainer, just from a business and economical sense. But for the fans, especially having that kind of emotional connection, almost living through it. We've seen it with Aston Villa and Jack Grealish, right? Obviously there's a bit of animosity and ill feeling at the minute with the Manchester City move, but they've lived vicariously through him. He's the guy that's come through the academy. He's living the boyhood dream, and to have these players that come through on a regular basis and make it into the first team. Like you said, your Chowdhury's, your Barnes, your Thomas's. It's just obviously Chilwell then moving to Chelsea as well. Like it's a real point of pride for the fans, like having that, and something that gives you, I think, just more authenticity as a team. If you're constantly importing and buying talent, you lose that connection a bit.
Yeah, and again, it's what makes something special about Leicester City is that kind of family connection, and that kind of it does allow, and I think the ownership, just to come back to them, have really bought into that, and have got this really lovely balance of being a family club, but at the same time being an international business. So we're looking at the likes of, obviously still at the moment, James Maddison and Arsenal links won't go away because Arsenal won't pay the fee anyway. We've definitely talked about it on the show many times before. But they set their price to go, right, this is the player and this is how much we're going to hold out for. And even they won't budge to anybody, which is, again, having that balance of having the community, the family side, and having that international business side. It's just something we couldn't really ask too much for, especially when they first bought this club.
Yeah. And I think obviously having that proven track record of holding out for those big fees, the likes of, obviously Kante had them a release clause, but from them for Mahrez, for Chilwell, for Maguire being the biggest one, it kind of gives us that level of pedigree in the market, and it shows that we're not going to be bullied or bossed around by the top teams. We're realistic. We know that we're not a super club. So, if a stratospheric offer comes in for one of our players, then of course, and it makes business sense and we can get other players in and invest the money, we will do. I think you'd be foolish to sit here and say that James Maddison is definitely not going to go to Arsenal. Of course, that's a possibility that could happen. But if like you say, it's going to happen on our terms. If that is to be the case, it's because Arsenal have paid through the nose for him, as opposed to, obviously we had Mahrez that went on strike a little bit and things got a bit sour, but certainly like Maguire conducted himself with professionalism right the way through and, didn't try force through a move. I know there's some ill feeling towards Chilwell, but, for the most part, didn't really do anything to sort of forcibly get a move. I think that having that kind of business model in place and saying that, we want to build our players, we don't want to lose anyone, but equally we're realistic. If a massive offer comes in and we feel like we can sign 2 or 3 players, which is going to improve the overall quality of the team, and it's actually going to be a progressive step for the club, then of course we'll take that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely agree there. And just in terms of, obviously, this season, it's going to be, we want to obviously build season on season. However, we've come such a long way in such a small amount of time, and with the squad depth. What are your thoughts on kind of where do you think Leicester City will finish, and what do you think we'll do in Europe and the cup competitions as well?
So, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I do feel like we're just going to finish 5th again. I know that sounds really boring, and we'll probably run the top 4 close again, but I just think, again, trying to be realistic, you look at the signings that, obviously City signing Grealish, you look at Liverpool, they've got Virgil van Dijk and all their top players back, and, Mane is going to be surely better than he was last year, fit and firing. Chelsea are on the cusp of signing Romelu Lukaku. You've got United who have brought in Varane and Jadon Sancho. You just think that these are, world-class players already adding to world-class teams. I'd be surprised if the top four, different order perhaps, but it wasn't the same top four that we saw last season. If we do, either one of the teams has absolutely had a shocker, or we exceeded all expectations and we've been incredible if we're going to break into that. But I do feel like we are the best of the rest. It's one of the first seasons of my life that I can remember going into thinking we're comfortably better than Arsenal, we're comfortably better than Spurs. Which kind of feels mad to say still. I mean, it was only a few months ago that they're trying to form a European Super League, and I'm thinking, well, we're literally better than you. It's not a fluke. If we played you tomorrow, I think we'd win. I think we'll finish higher in the league table. I think fifth probably, and another Europa League campaign. I'd say sort of top six is probably going to be the aim. Might fall a little bit short of top four. Oddly, I think, and I've seen a few people say this as well, that actually having a proper crack at the Europa League might actually be a more viable route into the Champions League, which is a bit mad to think, really, because you know how up and down and unpredictable cup competitions can be. But kind of anyone can beat anyone on their day. It was bitterly disappointing last season to lose out to Slavia Prague. I thought we should have gone through. So this season, obviously, with the increased squad depth, with the likes of Samaro, with Daka, you like to think that we can rotate a bit more whilst still maintaining that level of quality, and we should be able to progress further. Winning it might be a bit of a stretch. It always kind of depends on who drops down from those Champions League positions, who finishes third. If you get one of the big three Spanish teams, or you get a Dortmund or a Bayern, or someone has a bit of a wobble in the Champions League, and then all of a sudden you've got to play them in a quarterfinal or a semi-final. Of course, we're not going to be the favourites to win, but if the draw's on our side and we're up to it and we're playing well, there's no reason why we can't go really deep into that competition, semi-finals, maybe even the final. So who am I to say what Leicester can and can't do after what they've achieved in recent years? So I'll be keeping everything crossed for that. And then in terms of the cups, I think we'll have a decent crack at it. Whether we try for both cups, I don't know. I mean, I'd be surprised if we retain the FA Cup. Obviously, it'd be incredible. League Cup would be really nice to have a crack at. Obviously, haven't won it since 2000, since the turn of the millennium. So I don't see any reason why we can't have a proper crack at both the Europa League and at least one of the two domestic cups, and at least give the top four a run for their money. So it could be a season where we look great, but ultimately fall short on all four fronts. But if we finish fourth, win the League Cup, for example, and get to the semi-finals of the Europa League, I think you'd have to say that's a very, very good season. Yeah,
and that's arguably better than the season we had this year just gone as well. And it's amazing to think, again, just going back to kind of bring back full circle, just the club that we supported for years is now in this position where we're challenging. And just as you were saying, like in terms of North London, I remember coming to Arsenal, I think 2003, 2004, when just thinking, please don't just get completely turned over by them. Let's see if I can get a draw out of these guys. And then we'd lose, I think 3-1 or 4-1. I was like, well, we had to go. And then to think that we're now in our backyard turning these players over, partly is down to the way that we've done business, partly down to, as you were saying, with the likes of Manchester United and Arsenal have just been, the resource have been drained from the club. So they're just trying to survive on shoestrings at the moment. But I think that in itself in 20 years is just unbelievable, and just shows you again why we love football. Anything can happen at pretty much any time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can kind of see what Arsenal are doing, obviously with the faith they're putting in Arteta, with the likes of Saka, with the likes of Emile Smith-Rowe. There seems like a long-term project there to nurture youth. They feel like they're probably 2 to 3 years off actually getting back to challenging for Champions League positions, but there seems to be something in place. Tottenham obviously feels far more chaotic. We don't know whether Harry Kane's going to be there. Obviously the managerial situation was farcical in the summer, so Tottenham does seem a bit like you don't really know what to expect from Nuno, and Tottenham this season. Obviously a lot depends on kind of whether Kane's there and whether he's committed to the club still, but I feel like Leicester, incredibly well-run club, just have a clear identity, clear philosophy. We know what we're doing in the transfer market. We've got some incredibly talented players. We've got a young, hungry squad. And I like the fact that we find ourselves in this position where, if worst case scenario, James Maddison goes, it's not necessarily the same as like Aston Villa losing Jack Grealish. Okay, they've now signed 3 players to try and counteract that. But there's now no real one player you could probably take out of Leicester and be like, this deck of cards falls down, so to speak. It feels like there's real strong continuity there in every area. Yeah,
definitely. Especially even last year with the likes of, you're looking at the likes of Tillemans. I think he was the only player I could say that were like, if you took them out the side, the whole, as we saw in, like, for example, we played against Zoila Hamsk away, we took him out of the squad and the whole squad just like dropped levels massively. But again, just want to say thank you to Charlie for coming on. And where can the people find you? Again, I'll leave your Twitter and everything down in the link in the description below.
Yeah, sure. So Twitter's probably the best place to find me. I'm at CharlieJC93. Tweet just basically mainly about football. I also do a lot of work for my company, Snap Media. We own a collection of websites, one of which is Give Me Sport. So I do a lot of work across there and Give Me Sport Women. So yeah, I encourage anyone, and I'll probably plug this again on the women's show for anyone to check that out.
Yeah, again, so I'll have the link in the description to all of that is available. So make sure you go check out Charlie and all the websites below. But yeah, thank you, Charlie, for coming on once again. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure you like, subscribe, all that generic YouTuber stuff we try and plug at the end. We're trying to get better at that. But yeah, thank you all for subscribing and watching, and we'll see everybody in the next video. So goodbye.